Kings 6, verse 1, it says this, "Now it came about in the 480th year after the sons of Israel came out of the land of Egypt," so 480 years after the Exodus, "in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month of Ziv," which is the second month, "that he, Solomon, began to build the house of Yahweh." Now, we have a fixed date for this verse. The fixed date is 966 BC. So if you take 480 years, that's in bold on this right there in that verse, and you add it to the fixed date of the 4th year of Solomon's reign of 966 BC, you get 1446 BC for the Exodus. So this Pharaoh that they go in front of in verse 1 has to be the Pharaoh of the Exodus. Now, you might say, "Oh, well, we can't be sure." You're right. We have to resist some dogmatism. But Egyptians were really good at preserving mummies. They did, archaeology is our friend, and they did us a favor. They did us a solid, as the young kids say. And here's Thutmose I, and he's probably the one that killed the Hebrew babies, maybe. That's what Frank Turek thinks, and I tend to agree with him. Ryrie's study notes he's a little more shaky on that. And then you have Thutmose II. He was sickly. He married his half-sister, and he left a 2-year-old son. They preserved him pretty good. And then you get Thutmose III. He had a 54-year reign, and he's the one that wanted Moses dead when Moses became the fugitive. This is him. And he's the only one that had that long reign. Why does that matter? Because Moses was in Midian for about 40 years. And only one Pharaoh qualifies for that time, and it's this guy. And then now, when he dies, that's when God told Moses, "Go, the people who wanted you dead are dead. Go back, go," because Moses was still scary, right? We saw that a couple weeks ago. That's this guy, he's dead. And now the Pharaoh that they're in front of is Amenhotep II. He was known to be cruel. He was supposedly athletic, very boastful, and we believe he's the Exodus Pharaoh. You want to notice something? I don't think he had a good skin care routine. Wonder what those are. Anybody want to guess? Scars from boils. There's a better picture of him. He's the only one that has that. I don't know. I read somewhere in the book of Exodus that these boils came on the Egyptians. And this guy has them. Also, this guy was succeeded by his son, Thutmose IV, but Thutmose IV was not the oldest son. He had an older brother who died, like the 10th plague in Egypt. So this guy has boils. His oldest son died, so his younger son succeeded him. And also, there's this stele in Egypt. All of this is in Egypt that they find. Archaeology is our friend. It's the elephantine stele of Amenhotep II of this guy. And it's dated around 1440 BC. So he's right in that time frame of the Exodus. And it said it was a stele where he's bragging about raiding the land of Canaan and bringing back over 100,000 slaves. Why would he need to do that in 1440? Because 6 years earlier in 1446 BC, the Exodus happened, and all of his slaves, with the powerful work and a mighty hand of God, left Egypt. And the waters crashed down on his soldiers, and they were depleted. So he raided Canaan and brought back 100,000 slaves. Now, that's probably an exaggeration because pharaohs were known to exaggerate a bit, but that stele survives today tells us that there was certainly something going on at that time. So when you look at this picture of this mummy with scars, and he had a poor skincare routine, do you think he is now asking the question, I wonder who Yahweh is that I need to listen to him? Or do you think that is settled for him? He knows who Yahweh is now. And this is a spoiler alert. Because we know that he knows who Yahweh is now. Dearly beloved, do you know who Yahweh is now? Do you hope he looks away when we entertain those things that we're not supposed to? That we don't get plagues thrusted upon us as only by his grace. So, remember the mummy. Let's not be like him. So that's who's Pharaoh. Who is Yahweh then? If that's the Pharaoh, Amenhotep II, with those boil scars on his skin, mummified that way, whose firstborn son died and his later son took over after him, who brags about going to take these slaves from the land of Canaan in a raid because he needed slaves because his slaves left. That's Pharaoh. And who is Yahweh? And it says, verse 1 says, and afterward, Moses and Aaron came to Pharaoh, and said to Pharaoh, thus says Yahweh. And who is Yahweh? Notice what it says: the God of Israel, the God of the offspring of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And when God speaks, he's got something pretty important to say, and this is what he's telling Pharaoh: let my people go, that they may celebrate a feast to me in the wilderness. Perez International Translation: they belong to me, not to you. Let them go so they can serve me, and they need to stop serving you. Dearly beloved, when Jesus asked to get a coin, and he says, whose image is on it? And he said, well, it's Caesar's image. And the implication is, well, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's and render unto God what is God's. And the implication is, whose image is on you? Whose image is on you? God's image. You don't belong to Caesar, you belong to Jesus. You belong to Yahweh. This is the God of Israel. Let my people go, send them out that they may celebrate a feast to me in the wilderness. They don't belong to you. That's who Yahweh is. He's the God of the Israelites. He's the Christian God, the one who left his invisible glory and came to the earth veiled in a human body so that we can know him. The Gospel of John says that Jesus has exegeted or explained the Father. Because no one has ever seen the Father. Jesus came to the earth to explain him. So if you want to see what the Father is like, look at Jesus in the Gospels. That's what the Father is like. So Yahweh speaks through Moses and Aaron and tells Pharaoh, send them out. Let my people go that they may celebrate a feast to me in the wilderness. Do you think Pharaoh listens? What do you think he does? Yeah, go. Of course. Of course, Yahweh. I'm sorry. I should have known, right? Everyone say no. No. Human hubris and a holy God, verses 2 through 9. And look at Pharaoh's human hubris and in his interaction with the holy God in verses 2 through 3. There's something interesting here. Verse 2 says, but Pharaoh said, who is Yahweh? There's that question. It's the one that clamors for the answer. By the end of the story, he's going to know. But right now, who is Yahweh? Whoever he is, whomever he is, he's got to be puny. He's got to have no power. He's got to be just nothing, because our Egyptian gods have had you in captivity and in oppression for 400 years. Who is this guy that I need to think about? That I should obey his voice and let Israel go? I do not know Yahweh, and besides, I would not let Israel go. You know what's funny is, in verse 1, when God, through Moses and Aaron, tells him, send the people out, that verb is an intensifying verb. It's an imperative, which is a command, but it's a PO imperative, which is an intensified. Let them go. Surely send them out. And you know what's funny is in this reply in verse 2, Pharaoh uses the same verb. At least Moses records it that way. I don't know Yahweh. And also, I don't know, Yahweh, and also, I will not let Israel go, or I will not send them out, uses the same PL intensifier. To the degree and the emphasis that you're telling me to let them go, to the degree and that same emphasis, I'm telling you no. He's matching Yahweh's energy. Yahweh, you want to tell me what to do? I'm telling you what to do. And everyone in here, raise your hand if you've never implicitly acted that way. Let the congregation know that only one person raised their hand, and I believe them. It's interesting. He's matching that same intensification of no. God thrusts a demand on him. Yahweh thrusts a demand on him. He says, no, I'm not doing it. With the same intensity. Verse 3, then they said, the God of the Hebrews has met with us. Please, let us go a 3 days journey into the wilderness that we may sacrifice to Yahweh, our God. Otherwise, he will fall upon us with pestilence or with the sword. Now, when we read a couple weeks ago the interaction that God had with Moses and with Aaron, he told Aaron, go to Moses, and then they go to the elders and they tell him everything God said. This was never mentioned before. So what is this phrase about God may fall upon us with pestilence or with the sword? What's going on there? Well, I do know something in the context that might help us. Somebody almost died a couple weeks ago, right? Oh, right. Yeah. Hey, Pharaoh, God takes his covenant really, really serious. How do I know that? Because he almost killed Moses, Gershom, one of them. If it wasn't for Moses' wife, her quick thinking and the ceremony of the circumcision, somebody's dead if it's not for that. Remember that? So they know something now. They know that God takes his covenant promises seriously. He's making divine demands that his people go and worship him because they belong to him. They don't belong to Pharaoh. And they're warning Pharaoh, hey, you think we belong to you? God could take us out because we belong to him if we don't do what he told us to do. Now think about it that way. God demands fealty to his covenant. So they're warning Pharaoh. This is a warning. He doesn't care because Pharaoh hasn't answered the question or hasn't had an answer for him. Who is Yahweh? Who is Yahweh in verse 2? That I should obey his voice to let Israel go. I do not know Yahweh. And then he says, and besides, so the idea is, even if I did, I'm not letting you go. Even if I did know Yahweh, you still belong to me. He's just one among all the other gods, but our gods are stronger than him anyway. What hubris. What pride. I know a person that sounds very similar to the story I opened with. This fella too was a professor, and he also was carrying on an extramarital affair in secret and went on vacation with his family, I think up this way, actually. And was in a really bad car accident that the car flipped. And in its flipping, it sat his 13-year-old son on his bottom and flipped over him. The glass broke, sat him down, flipped over him, and he miraculously was unscathed. And then when he was exposed, he said that he knew that was God warning him, and he didn't change it. So he owned his, and he's still alive. Humans are stubborn. Flirt with sin. Shake our fist at God when things don't go our way. Even if we know him, the lust of the flesh still want to grab us and take us, but really they're not kidnapping us. The lust of the flesh is us. And we willfully do it. Humans are stubborn, dearly beloved. Are you stubborn today? Say no. Lie to me. Even if I knew him, I wouldn't let them go, he says. Well, he's not going to have a choice here in a minute. It's really sad. There's a real human who's made in God's image, who's falling into sin and is corrupted by demonism and thinks that he's God himself, God in the flesh, sitting on Egypt's throne in the seat of power, and he thinks that he's got it all and he can do what he's doing. He can oppress people, he can enslave them, he can beat them, he can give them unrealistic expectations, and even if he knew Yahweh, it doesn't matter, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Then we see more of his hubris, verses 4 through 9. But the king of Egypt said to him, so that they cried out. They said, hey, let us go do this so that nothing bad happens to us. God takes his covenant loyalty and his covenant demand seriously. But verse 4, but the king of Egypt said to them, Moses and Aaron, why do you draw the people away from their work? You guys are the problem. See, if y'all would have never come, everything would just be going on business as usual. But no, you're coming over here disrupting the apple cart. I can probably, it's not recorded here, but I can probably see him looking at Moses saying, aren't you a fugitive? You need to do something about that. And he says, get back to your labors. Verse 5, again, Pharaoh said, look, the people of the land are now many. And translation is, I got a lot of slaves, and they're doing a lot of work for me. And you would have to have them stop that? Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? Telling my slaves to stop work. In verse 4, he says, get back to your labors. It's an imperative, but it's not an intensifier imperative like the one where he replied to God. He's not shaking his fist at God. He's shaking his fist at Moses and Aaron. So it is an imperative, it is a command, but it's not as strong as the one that he was telling God, which demonstrates his hubris. Which is backwards if you really think about it. I'm going to be more forceful against God than I actually am against the people I'm oppressing. And that's the psychology of a fallen person, dearly beloved, who is completely consumed with pride and wickedness. That they shake their fists harder at God than they do people. Only someone who thinks he's God would act that way. And that's what Pharaoh thinks. Blames Moses and Aaron, causing them to stop their work. So the same day, Pharaoh commanded the taskmasters over the people and their foremen, saying, so now here's the solution. Here's the solution to the Moses and Aaron problem. Here's the solution. Here's Pharaoh's answer to the question, who is Yahweh? I'll tell you who Yahweh is. Check this out, Moses. That's your God. Watch this. You are no longer to give people straw to make bricks as previously. Wait a minute. I missed something here. Again, Pharaoh said, look, the people of the land are many, and you would have them cease from their labors. So the same day, Pharaoh commanded the taskmasters over the people and their foremen, saying, and here's the solution, you are no longer to give the people straw to make brick as previously. Let them go and gather straw from themselves. The way they would make bricks, they would take straw and mud, put it together. It was like a binder that would, like an aggregate that would, and then they would harden it by baking them. I believe it's the standard practice of the day. And when you're in the Nile Delta, there's not a lot of stone that you can build with like there is in Canaan, where they can carve stones or hewn big stones. They have some, but nothing like what they needed. So they would bake bricks, some kind of cement aggregate with mud and straw that would make them strong. And now he's saying, hey, we used to give you the straw. Now you're not getting that anymore. Let them go and gather straw for themselves. Verse 8, but the quota of bricks which they were making previously, you shall impose on them. You are not to reduce any of it. Why? Why shouldn't you reduce any of it? He's commanding the taskmasters that command the foremen, which are of the sons of Israel, and they're the ones over the actual laborers. And he's saying, why? Why aren't you going to reduce any of it? Because they're lazy. They're lazy, that's why. How do I know that they're lazy, Pharaoh says? Because they cry out, let us go and sacrifice to God. You got time to go 3 days and sacrifice to God? You got time to go get straw. Let the labor, verse 9, be heavier on the men, and let them work at it so they will pay no attention to false words. A more literal rendering of verse 9, I think it is a good translation of verse 9. It's smooth, it's good, but where it says, let them work at it so they will pay no attention to false words. The word pay no attention is also the word for work. So the idea is, let the work be heavier on the men, and they will work at it and not work false words. In other words, don't work at thinking about going out there, those false words of worshiping Yahweh. Rather, give them so much work, go get the straw, meet the quota, do not reduce any other work so they can be focused on that and not focus on working towards serving Yahweh. Dearly beloved, the reason that it's worded that way is because sacrificing to Yahweh is work. It's a 3 days journey. They're going to take all of these animals. The priestly function of slaughtering animals is busy, laborious kind of work. It's the kind of thing that you need physical strength for. You got to build the altars with wood where you're going to burn the animal on it. You got to have butchers to cut it up. You got to know what you're doing. It's labor intensive. So let the work of brick making be heavier on the men, and they can work at that so that they don't work at false words of going to worship Yahweh. That's a solution. That's how he's responding to the creator of the universe. Make it harder on his people. Yahweh's got no power here. Brings me to my third point, harder work and heavier hands, verses 10 through 14. And then notice this unrealistic expectation. Verses 10 through 11 says, so the taskmasters of the people and their foremen went out and spoke to the people, saying, thus says Pharaoh, I am not going to give you any straw. You go and get straw for yourselves wherever you can find it, but none of your labor will be reduced. I can't think of a specific example right now, but I do know I've done it before. I was so mad at my children, I won't say which ones, that I told them to go do something it was impossible for them to do. And I folded my arms up, expected it to get done. It's like saying, go up the stairs, but don't touch the stairs. Sweep the floor with your toothbrush. And they're like, call the estate on the Perez household. No, I've never done it. But it's like when you're so angry, you say something that you know it's unrealistic and they can't live up to that or they can't do it, but you say it anyway because you're mad, and it's their fault you're mad, right? Because they're misbehaving. Right, this is why I can't retire all the trauma that we gave our children. But these are unrealistic expectations. This is what people do when they're not thinking rationally. This is where emotion and just nonsensical thought really come on Front Street with Pharaoh. There's no way they could live up to this. None. Yet that's the imposition. That's what he's saying. That's how little regard he has for them and for their God. And notice the sincere attempt at accomplishing the task. And this, again, remember when they believed Yahweh, and I'm like, that's not like them. And then I read this, and it says, so the people scattered through all the land of Egypt to gather stubble for straw. They tried. They actually tried. Verse 13 says, the taskmasters pressed them, saying, complete your work quota, your daily amount, just as when you had straw. Now, that word complete, these are the taskmasters talking, and that is the intensifying verb. So when it says they pressed them, saying, complete your work, it's intensified. You better complete that work. It's impossible. Better find a way. Wax like a dad, right? I don't care how you do it. You're going to do it. Dad's mad. when Bubba was little, and I would use my dad voice. He was like 3 or 4 years old. He'd go and he'd whisper to Sarah, "God, I don't know where he got that from. I was like, I'm just using my dad voice. No one. I was like, dude, is he going to tell me later on that words are literally violence? I'm like, they're not. I promise they're not. I'll show you violence. I'm not Pharaoh, I promise. My kids might say different. But yeah, it's intensified. Complete your work. Get it done by any means necessary. I like this. They understand they're under oppression. They know God visited them. They don't know what the outcome is. They're expecting it to go well. They were excited. They believed. And then now the pain comes. And then we see power and abuse, verse 14. Moreover, the foremen of the sons of Israel, whom Pharaoh's taskmasters had set over them. So these foremen are Israelites. They were beaten and were asked, why have you not completed your required amount either yesterday or today in making the bricks previous? Harder work and heavier hands. It's not just do the work. It's not just unrealistic expectations. It's like, we're going to beat you too, by the way. Again, the intensifying PL for why haven't you completed your work, used again. They're oppressive. They're violent. Even in their speech. Do you think there's got to be relief somewhere? There's got to be help. I understand. Listen, we can reason with Pharaoh. We can't reason with the taskmasters. Let's go cry out to Pharaoh. Yeah? Yeah? Let's go tell him what they're doing to us. It's shooting himself in the foot because we're not able to get this work done that he's demanding of us. He'll listen to us. Let's go air out our grievances to Pharaoh. And then he adds insult to injury in verses 15 through 19. So notice this attempt at relief. Then the foreman of the sons of Israel came and cried out to Pharaoh, saying, why do you deal this way with your servants? Legitimate question. Verse 16, there is no straw given to your servants, yet they keep saying to us, make bricks. And behold, your servants are being beaten. And then this last phrase in verse 16, but it is the fault of your own people. The fault of your own people, that word fault there in Hebrew is the word hatat, which is sin. Your servants are being beaten, the sin of your people. That, I don't like that they used the word fault here. They should have used the word sin, hatat. It's sin. They're violating our humanness. They're violating. If we're their property, fine, but don't treat us this way. We're working. It's your people doing this to us. I think Pharaoh's like, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. Okay, you got me. We messed up. Shouldn't be treating others that way. There's this thing, this internal monologue in your head that tells you when you wrong someone that, man, I really wouldn't like it if that was done to me. I probably shouldn't be doing it to others, but people are really good at turning that voice down when it's them doing it to others, but it goes really, really high when it's being done to them. I knew a guy that was in jail because he shot his sister's boyfriend for cheating on her. And had women fighting in the lobby on visitation day over him because he was always cheating on his girlfriends. How dare you cheat on my sister? And he shot his sister's boyfriend, but he was a cheater. It was okay for him to do it, but it was never okay for someone to do it to his family. And here, the volume of that voice that says, you know how you're treating them? You wouldn't like if that was done to you. Pharaoh has that turned all the way down. And he adds insult to injury in verses 17 through 18. But he said, You are lazy, very lazy. And really, it's a double of the same phrase. You are lazy, lazy you are. Emphatic. So I like that they add the word very here in the New American Standard. You're lazy, very lazy. Yes, yeah, you're lazy. Why are you lazy? Therefore, you say, let us go and sacrifice to Yahweh. And I think he's picking on them, and he's doing this sarcasm, and he's just like, it just jumped out like he's being childish, foolish, putting salt in their wounds. I can hear him mimicking them. Let us go and sacrifice to Yahweh. And he was known, Hotep II was known to be cruel. Thought he was untouchable. And he says in verse 18, so go now, go and work. For you will be given no straw, yet you must deliver the quota of bricks. You get no relief here. Who do you think you are? And they realized their predicament. The foremen of the sons of Israel saw. They saw, what did they see? That they were in trouble. The word trouble there is the Hebrew word ra. Can be translated calamity, bad, evil, all these negative things that are semantically available with this word ra. They saw that they were ra. They were in a bad way. Almost like they were just surrounded and in the midst of ra, of evil. Because they were told you must not reduce your daily amount of bricks. And we have to stop there. So I know I asked you, who is Yahweh? But we can't answer that yet. We know he's the God of the Israelites. We know that he has visited his people. We know that he demands covenant loyalty. We know all of those things, but we haven't seen what he's going to do yet to Pharaoh. And when we see what he does to Pharaoh, we're going to go away knowing all the more who he is. And this story, when he shows this in Egypt, is going to be repeated over and over in all of the prophets and all of the poetic books of the Old Testament, because this is going to be the defining event that the nation of Israel looks back to as they anticipate the future relief of their nation and of that appearance of that God-man that's going to make all things right for them. It's this story here. But we looked at spoiler alert for future spectators. I was really excited when I saw that there was a mummy that fit the timeline that had boil scars on his face. I was like, amen. Human hubris and a holy God, harder. That should be work. I don't know how that happened. And heavier hands. And adding insult to injury, verses 15 through 19. Well, so what? Dearly beloved, how can we apply this today? The first thing is, I got about another hour to go, and then y'all can go to lunch and do that. The first thing is, I want to ask you, who is Yahweh? Who is Yahweh? Is Yahweh the one we look to only when we need him? Or is he the one that we order our affections rightly to as often as we can when we're not distracted or crushed by the worries of this world? I would invite you to really ask that question all week today when you get up in the morning. Maybe write it down on a flashcard and put it in your vanity, on your refrigerator. Who is Yahweh? And remember what he has done for you, dearly beloved. He saved you through his son. That's who Yahweh is. So remember your answer to this question, who is Yahweh? He's the one that comforts you when you're in the lowest valley. He's the one that blesses you when you're in the highest mountain peak of your life. He's the one that through it all has been there, gives you your life, gives you everything that you have. And we should find contentment in him. Talking to a brother yesterday, and I just told him, I was like, man, I can't believe God lets me do this for him. Yahweh's the one that I cried out to and asked him for an out from the gang, and he gave me one. Sometimes we forget all the things that he's done for us. Make a habit of writing your prayers, especially in those darkest, hardest moments. Write down a prayer. Keep it on you. Read it every day. And when he answers it, you can look back at that prayer the way the Israelites look back at the Exodus and say, look what he did. Look what he did. I think that's something that's lacking today, is remembering, look what he did. So dearly beloved, who is Yahweh? Number 2, dearly beloved, remember, stubborn hearts cause a lot of trauma. Stubborn hearts cause a lot of trauma. A lot of people are going to die because Pharaoh is stubborn. A lot of people have died because people are stubborn. So much as it is in control of your sphere of influence, dearly beloved, do not be stubborn to such a degree. You have to have your own way all the time because you're the one in charge. You just hurt people all along the way. Sure, we're not in the seat of power, oppressing 1 million plus people. But you know what? I know husbands that yell at their wives with their silence. They yell with their silence. I'm displeased with you, so I'm not going to talk to you. And I'm just going to shut down. Stubborn hearts cause a lot of trouble. So yeah, maybe we don't have a national thing here that we're in charge of, us little people in Grace Church Aurora, where we aren't oppressing 400,000 people, 1 million people, and making them make bricks for us. Yeah, maybe that's not us, but you know what? We each have a sphere of influence, and we can be tyrants in our own home. We can be tyrants in our managerial position at work. We can be tyrants with our own family, and they have to take us in small doses because you know how they are. Stubborn hearts cause a lot of trauma. And the third thing I'd like for you to take is, dearly beloved, with all your heart this week, remember the moment. Remember the moment. What do I mean by that? You know, Pharaoh's no longer asking who Yahweh is. He knows. He knows. So if you're in here today and you've asked, well, who is Yahweh? Let me tell you, he's the one that put boils on that mummy. He's the one that not to be trifled with. The end of the Narnia story of the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, they're celebrating and Aslan's walking away. And I think it's Beaver, one of them. Forgive me if I get this wrong, homeschoolers. But he tells the girl, one of the girls, Aslan is not a tame lion. Dearly beloved, God is not a tame God. And what he means by that is not that God doesn't have self-control, is that no one can control God. He's internally consistent, fully holy, stands apart from any other being that exists. There's none like him. And I want you to remember the mummy that chose to defy a righteous and holy God. And may that push you to seek his favor and his grace so that you don't end up like him. May the Lord help us lay down those things that he calls us to lay down and pick up those things that he calls us to pick up. May we exhibit the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. And may we all leave here more conformed to the image of the Son. So Lord, thank you for this text today. I pray, Father God, that if there be any in this room that do not know you, that they would remember the mummy That mummy is no longer asking who is Yahweh. He knows, and it's too late for him. His eternal destiny is sealed. But for those of us that have air in our lungs, and if there be any in here who have air in their lungs that do not know you, Lord, that are still asking the question, well, who is Yahweh that I should listen to him? May they listen today. He is so gracious. He loves you. He cares for you. He sent his son from his eternal glory to be veiled in a human body, to live the life that you can never live and pay the price that you can never pay. And by simply believing in the death, burial, and resurrection of the unique God-man, Jesus Christ, you can be born again. May we all do that today. May we all look to him today. Lord, be with us. As we journey this week, help us to have opportunities to share the gospel. And most importantly, dear Lord, for all of us who already believe in your name, help us to exhibit the fruit of the Spirit towards those in our sphere of influence. Love you, Lord. Thank you. Remove our stubbornness and increase our ability and capacity to love. In Christ's precious name we pray, and by the power of the Holy Spirit. And all of God's children said, Amen. Amen. Please stand for the last song.